This is VOA News. Reporting by remote, I'm Joe Ramsey. Facing production delays and mounting losses, Russian President Vladimir Putin has urged his government to cut through bureaucracy to crank out enough weapons and military supplies to feed the war in Ukraine. The Russian military's shortfalls in the 8-month war have been so pronounced that Putin had to create a new structure to try to address them. On Tuesday, he chaired a new committee designed to accelerate the production and delivery of weapons and supplies for Russian troops. He stressed the need to, quote, gain higher tempo in all areas. Recent Russian attacks have focused largely on Ukraine's energy facilities, especially electricity generation and transmission. Shortfalls are so severe, Ukraine on Tuesday asked citizens living abroad not to return this winter to avoid placing further strain on the power supply. American women's basketball star Brittany Grinder loses her appeal with a Russian court upholding her 9-year prison sentence on drug possession, AP correspondent Julie Walker reports.
Brittany Grinder's pleas for leniency via video from her prison cell on Tuesday went nowhere with the Russian court.
It's just big that the court takes in all the mistakes that were overlooked.
She spent her birthday last week in a penal colony and says it's taking a toll.
It's been very, very stressful.
Grinder was convicted in August after Moscow police found vape canisters with cannabis oil in her luggage at the airport. She admitted to them, but her lawyers presented a prescription. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan calls the hearing another sham judicial proceeding, and in a statement says President Biden is willing to go to extraordinary lengths to bring Americans home. The U.S. has been proposing a prisoner swap with Russia. I'm Julie Walker.
This is VOA News. The first formal peace talks aimed at ending 2 years of war between the Ethiopian army and forces from the country's northern region of Tigray started in South Africa on Tuesday and will end on Sunday, the South African government said. At stake is an opportunity to end a conflict that has killed thousands, displaced millions, and left hundreds of thousands on the brink of famine in Africa's second most populous nation, destabilizing the wider Horn of Africa region. The talks, mediated by the African Union, begin as the government has been making significant gains on the battlefield, capturing several large towns in Tigray over the past week. The government offensive, conducted jointly with allied troops from neighboring Eritrea, has raised fears of further harm to civilians, leading African, U.S., and European leaders and even Pope Francis to call for a ceasefire and urgent talks. A poll finds that most people in the U.S. want more action on climate change, AP correspondent Norman Hall reports.
Nearly 2/3 of Americans think the federal government is not doing enough to fight climate change. That's according to a new poll that shows limited public awareness about a sweeping new law that commits the U.S. to its largest ever investment to combat global warming. Democrats in Congress approved the Inflation Reduction Act in August without a single Republican vote. Yet the poll by the Associated Press Nork Center for Public Research finds that 61% of U.S. adults say they know little to nothing about it. 49% of Americans say it won't make much of a difference on climate change, 33% say it will help, and 14% think it will do more to hurt the climate. I'm Norman Hall.
Adidas has ended its partnership with the rapper formerly known as Kanye West over his offensive anti-Semitic remarks. The German sportswear company said Tuesday in a statement it, quote, does not tolerate anti-Semitism and any other sort of hate speech, and called Ye's recent comments and actions, quote, unacceptable, hateful, and dangerous. It comes after Adidas faced pressure to cut ties with Ye, with celebrities and others on social media urging the company to act. Recapping our top story, facing production delays and mounting losses, Russian President Vladimir Putin has urged his government to cut through bureaucracy to crank out enough weapons and military supplies to feed the war in Ukraine. The Russian military shortfalls in the 8-month war have been so pronounced that Putin had to create a new structure to try to address them. On Tuesday, he chaired a new committee designed to accelerate the production and delivery of weapons and supplies for Russian troops. Reporting by remote, I'm Joe Ramsey.